So for Mechanics Monday today, we want to do a breakdown of Carson Wentz and Jared Goff, kind of give a bit of a comparison of what we like with their mechanics, don't like, some things that they could work on. Um, Personally, I like Carson Wentz's mechanics a little bit better than Jared Goff. I'll show you why in the video. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to end up to be the better quarterback, but mechanics-wise, I think he's just a little bit more efficient, just a little bit more smooth with his release, and so again, I'll tell you why that is in the video, and let's get right to it. So here we have his pro day here, and we have a couple good shots of his throw. It's kind of hard to get good positions here, but here we have it from the back. The big thing that Carson Wentz does good, and what we always talk about, is getting more hips into the ball and really creating that disassociation. So we want those hips to be able to get in front of the shoulders, and so we could see when Carson gets those feet down in the ground, the first thing that kind of starts to move around are those hips. You can see how well they're starting to turn open already. He allows himself to get a little bit overextended here in the low back and get a little bit more core activation, but not bad. He's also throwing a little bit more of a type 2 type of a ball, so the release is going to be a little bit different, but you can see how good those hips are getting involved in the throw here. So he's coming around. He's really getting them all the way ahead. You can see how much more those hips are facing towards us than the shoulders. The shoulders are still kind of closed while his hips are all the way opened up and really generating most of the force. So that makes it so he stays up much straighter when he throws. So you can see how well he's balanced within his QLs, or those trunk stabilizers, when he finishes, in comparison to Goff, when we'll watch him and see how he ends up kind of falling off to the side. So there's one from kind of the side view. Let's take a look from more the front. And what I like about this one too is it's a deep ball. We don't get to see how the actual ball goes, but we can see that he really has to put more into it, and instead of really having to extend over to the side, what he does is he gets much more of those hips involved, which is exactly what we want, and he's able to still keep that trunk nice and stable and really lets it go there, and really generates most of the force from the hip and gets good rotation still in the spine. So you can see how much more of it's a rotation rather than getting bent over, and that's something that we're always trying to preach within quarterbacks, is being able to keep yourself much more straight up in that spine rather than leaning over to one side, which then makes it so it's harder to stay accurate. So we got one more here. This one's from the back, and it really shows you how well he's able to get his glutes involved. So when he goes and gets set, everything is straight, right? He doesn't open up that hip too early. He has everything still facing right towards where he's going to throw. But once he starts to transition, it's those hips that go first instead of the trunk or instead of the arm, which is excellent. And again, very good posture is coming through. Look at how good that posture is. Look how extended he is in his back, going right over it with the arm. That is just very, very good. Good rotation too in the spine. Really excellent mechanics there. Okay, now here we want to just look at Jared Goff. So the difference here with really Carson Wentz and Jared Goff is the stability that is within the spine. What we're seeing with Jared is much more of leaning over to the side, and he also has a bit of an arch in the back. Unfortunately, this video isn't as good as the ones with Carson, but you can still see what it is that we're talking about here. So goes in steps. Everything looks very good there. It actually almost looks better just because you could see how Jared does a little bit better job of cocking with his shoulders, so his hips start out in front, which is excellent there. Something that helps you just develop a little bit more torque in those obliques. But then as he's transitioning through, you can see right here is when he loses that spine stabilization, so he's a little bit more hunched back. We saw that a little bit with Wentz too, but we can see better here with Jared how that ends up affecting his throw, where when he starts coming through, you can see how he starts leaning over to the side. That's usually very much of a neck dominance. It could also be left QL that's really driving this throw here, and it just makes it so you have a tendency to be a little bit more inaccurate. So right there you can see how really leaned over to the side he is outside the foot. And so he has to throw much more with his arm and with the QL rather than developing that torque within his glutes. And you can see too, when he finishes, he ends up with those hips, even though he started out with them in front. Now you can see right there his shoulders are already in front of the hips, and they continue to lead the hips there. And so his hips, he does get his hips through after he throws, but they're not a very big part of the throw just because of how late they are in the motion. So here when you go to the left side, we can see, this is the other side, we can see a little bit more with the extension in the back. So he loads, good, again, good loading, way to get the hips in front. Then when he comes through right there, you can see how much of that extension he has in the back. And again, Carson Wentz had this too, but he was able to recover and get the hips through well. But Jared kind of struggles getting through that and ends up really leaning to the side. You can see how much he's using that QL and how much further those shoulders are along than the hips. You know, the ball's already released, so his shoulders are almost running at that angle right there, while the hips are still behind. So he's mostly using all arm, which you know, much harder to do in the NFL. There's not very many guys that can successfully use all arm and go for a whole season or and be efficient and accurate for a whole season. So that's the quarterback breakdown. Again, I don't want to make it seem like I'm saying that Carson Wentz can end up to be the better quarterback. I just think that he has a little bit better mechanics, a little bit more efficient. In this situation, what I would do is work a little bit more on Goff's core first and make it so he has some stability there, and then after that gain glute max activation to help with that lean, and I think it would just make it so he's much more efficient. And then again with Carson, we just make it so we can get a little bit more lower core activation, lower ab activation, TVA, and then maybe even some activation within the low back, those low spinal erectors. He might just be overusing those the mid spinal erectors and not getting full activation, those low lumbar erectors. So a little bit of a comparison from one side to the other, but overall I really think that Wentz has a very, very smooth and efficient release. So I'll go with him in terms of better technique. Thanks for watching.